Hi, welcome. In this video, it's part of my series called Flipping the Script. I'm going to be providing insight and context into a very popular concept called behavioral adjustment for dogs. And again, this concept is marketed by those who identify as force-free trainers. Even many balanced dog trainers market this idea of things, which follows or takes a path of approaching a relationship problem between a dog and owner as a learning-based exercise. And again, I talk about the problem with jumping into a relationship problem that way, and with trainers who, in a very superficial way, motivate dogs to respond while assuming that those responses can be trusted as it relates to perceptions of dogs changing the right way. And again, talk about why this is inherently flawed based on the two missing ingredients in the process by way of influence and control, and how they come into a process at the right level, aligned the right way through a intentional interaction-based method, which represents this system of training. Follow, again, I talk about the parenting example as a foundation of understanding. And so this system of training aligns with the authoritative parenting style versus permissive. And so again, I talk about the inherent problems. I talk about why it's so common for dog owners to invest time, money, and energy into this idea of things by way of learning, only to discover they're still coming out on the other side of things, still dealing with a relationship problem, still dealing with unresolved behavioral issues. Very common. In fact, it's part of the package deal. Now, this concept, again, aligns with learning as a way to try to overcome, as it says here, reactivity. So again, I talk about, the context of reactivity, okay, by way of a dog that has gained, a level of control in the relationship. So I talk about level of control. I'm talking about this whole thing again, and even in terms of dogs as, social animals, the issue of a hierarchy, okay, strength and weakness as defined in the relationship that way at a social level. But when you talk about reactivity, and you want to frame this up or use the parenting example, which is very helpful, a situation involving a parent and a selfish child, the way to look at behavioral issues in terms of, how they escalate, it's no different than a selfish child. As a selfish child becomes more and more selfish, behavioral issues escalate. Their attitude gets worse and worse. And so, and again, this whole issue about stress as well. It's like a child not finding comfort by way of the right parenting style. And so understanding that your role, just like the parent example, your role is absolutely critical when it comes to a good relationship with your dog. Dogs are social animals. It works off the same, same dynamic at the social level. I talk about depth of relationship. Dogs are amazing animals, how they connect with us that way. And so again, this is a concept here in terms of behavioral adjustment training that attempts to resolve, attempts to gain agreeableness. We'll talk about that, but the wrong way. Okay, and again, I talk about this issue about comfort. So the dog gains fulfillment, gains more control in the relationship. It'll offer up the image or the hope of, which is a false hope, of a better relationship, of a balanced dog. And this is where you see certain moments of agreeableness by way of gauging in the three themes that are in play here in these this idea of things. Bribery, accommodation, and negotiation, which again, you apply to the parent example. As a parent who's aligned, say, with the permissive parenting style, you can gain agreeableness by way of bribing the selfish child to get along, okay, for the, offering out the motive of a, say, the brand new Xbox game. However, it doesn't mean that agreeableness, how it's presented that way within the parameters of bribery, it doesn't mean that those moments represent that the relationship's actually getting better. And understand, this is why when you go into the video content of those who identify as force-free trainers especially, you're going to see video content that looks like infomercials, okay? You're going to get these kind of little snapshots of moments of agreeableness with dogs, which is meant to market, to lead you into believing wrongly, okay, that this idea of things can be trusted. And see, that's the deception here. And this is why it's so common for people to really to invest into this learning-based idea of things, only to again be left spinning their wheels, and but then keep investing over and over and over again, because again, in terms of how they think, people oftentimes become attracted to this idea of things because they believe that they don't have to change how they think. They don't have to change their role. And so again, that's why we wonder why people will be kind of trapped in a managing a problem situation. Well, that's why. So I'm going to play this video, some of it. Okay, I'm going to be stopping on the way to offer insight and context into this concept that is meant to, okay, overcome reactivity with dogs. But understand that the issue about reactivity plays into a relationship problem, and even in terms of, again, I talk about control manifesting. Okay, so we talk about reactivity. I talk about an expressed state. Dogs will express, again, control, react towards, say, other dogs, people, situations, because then there's also a stress load that's on that dog. Okay, that happens. So again, that stress load will stay there, but the reactivity is all about relationship. It's all about trying to gain control, expressing control, being uncertain at times when things aren't a sure thing. And so really what it does is it really creates this whole scenario of the dog being very reactive. And even more so when you're connected with the leash, because that ties in directly to the relationship that way, and it's going to even escalate, okay, in terms of talk about leash reactivity. Well, leash is about relationship, and so you can see that escalation that way when you get a dog on a leash connected with an owner where they've built the relationship on the dog being empowered. So again, I talk about those two core ingredients, influence and control. They have to come in, okay? They need to come into a process, and the only way that can happen is through a interaction-based approach, which takes a path of a power play. Okay, we'll talk about that because it's about how you're jumping in, the issue about control and influence, how they change perception of dogs. But the whole thing is in terms of dog coming into agreement with a intentional interaction-based method that speaks the right language. Understand it's very important. So that's why you look at trainers like the Dog Daddy or even Caesar. You'll see certain moments happening where dogs are going up into a high level of challenge. Well, it's about clarity. Understand that, in terms of a intentional interaction-based method, you want to make sure it's offering clarity to the dog through what those interactions represent. So those things all need to align properly to fill in the gap, so to speak, to provide the right path forward when it comes to dogs that have gained a level of control in their relationship. So again, I'm going to play some of this video, but pay attention, okay? Because I talk about control. I talk about the issue about, giving control to the dog, okay? Offering comfort the wrong way. You're going to see that narrative throughout this whole concept, how it's offered up.
BAT, or behavior adjustment training, was developed for using with dogs in rehabilitation, early socialization, aggression, frustration, and fear rehabilitation or prevention. And it's actually not just used with dogs. We can use it with horses or other species as well.
So right here, so this is Grisha Stewart. Okay, this is one of the force-free individuals marketing this inherently problematic concept. But you hear it kind of trying to cover off in all the problems with dogs, okay? Even horses. But it's interesting when you start to look at even this ideology, okay, this very permissive ideology, how it even plays into horses as well, creating problems, okay? Certain people are bringing that into horses, into the kind of horse arena, and it's creating issues there as well. Because understand that it's very similar in terms of, I've even trained those horse trainers, okay, which, by way of again, following a path of the intervention, those core ingredients I talk about, influence and control, how it's very similar, horses and dogs that way. But here you see this type of, idea of things, how it's kind of, it's like a spillover effect. Okay, in the book I wrote back a few years ago called The Mind and Body Connection, I talk about the rise in permissive parenting. But you see how, that rise in permissive parenting spills over into relationships with dogs as well, because we are how we think. And so here the deception is, and again, the issue about control. It's no different than a selfish child can look well behaved most of the day as they're playing their video games, as they're hanging out, doing what they want to do. But consider the moments. Okay, this is because this is really key in terms of a takeaway. Moments where parental influence is part of the interplay between a parent and child. And again, the example I use is, pick up your toys because you're the parent, versus pick up your toys and if you do it, you'll get something in return, say money or a brand new Xbox game. And a child that's and here's the problem. Okay, based on current state of the relationship, a very selfish child can be highly motivated, all right, to pick up their toys for based on bribery, versus pick up your toys because you're the parent. And so the difference there is parental influence. A demand is happening. So I talk about those two core ingredients: control and influence. Right, it's the same type of thing. What is revealed through that? So for a very selfish child, you're likely going to get pushback. Say, I'm not doing that. Especially if you've already signed a kind of a contract, social contract with the child. If you do A and B, you get C. And this is why children will go to certain parents, right? Because they get their ice cream, get what they want. They'll respond. But again, always consider how everything changes based on the current state of the relationship. You have to connect that dot. I understand that in the dog training world, it's not about connecting dots that way. That dot's not connected. It needs to be, but it's not. Okay, so these trainers, this is how they jump in because they hope you don't ask questions. Okay, they hope that you just buy into this. And even if you come out on the other side, which is very common with a really bad result, they hope you don't actually, ask questions about why. They hope that you just take the blame the dog. Understand that this is the setup. Okay, this is how it works. So understand that this is meant to be. You hear this all over. Well, it offers up false hope because it's based on a false image of nature. Just like I said, well, a selfish child can look great most of the day. Understand dogs as social animals can look great most of the day in your home environment, off leash. But then consider that statement that is common. As a trainer, you hear from people say, well, my dog is pretty good except. Well, the pretty good part is the deceptive nature of appearances. Even a dog will gain fulfillment, offer up the image of a balanced dog as you're petting all over your dog. Your dog is even attaching to certain people, but in a possessive way. Okay, it's again context. And then you'll be, people who are really buying this, get their emotions kind of in the way, will think that, well, the dog loves me more, so that they're connected to me. And it's really totally upside down. No, the dog's actually attached in a possessive way. So it really feeds into a problem because people get very confused in getting the right context of certain things that are happening.
Well, one important part of that is the leash skills. These are
Now pay attention here. Now Grisha Stewart's going into the leash skills. Okay. Now think about those core ingredients I talk about. Influence and control. Okay, so for a dog that's gained control, right, then you bring those core ingredients in. You interact in certain ways through leadership, and those core ingredients is going to trigger that dog off. That dog's going to go into a level of challenge. Okay, which needs to happen. Don't get me wrong. It has to be brought. It needs to be brought into a power play situation. So people ask, well, what's my method for, say, socialization towards reactivity on the dogs? You'll see in my videos. It's the push-pull method. Okay, you watch how I'm doing it, how influence and control is coming through specific interactions in a very intentional way. You'll see the replacement for this. Okay, the right way to go. But here, think about completely opposite. That's why I call my series "Flipping the Script." I'm flipping everything right side up. Everything's flipped upside down through this ideology. But notice here how this concept uses a long leash and harness. Okay, harness, right? God forbid you should connect with a collar on a dog because what does that do? That connection point, right? It's about intentional control. And so what this is doing, whether people realize it or not, it's really, you'll line this stuff up. You watch as we go through this video, everything that's to do with those core ingredients, influence and control, are absent here. They try to minimize it as much as possible. So this is why they say balance freedom and safety. Well, it's really saying freedom and safety, saying don't bring control of this dog because that's going to be a problem. Okay, and so it's attempting to build bridges here with a dog in control. Okay, this is really the concept here. You have a relationship problem. The dog's already in control. That's why the dog's reactive in the first place. And so this is all about just walking on eggshells, hoping you don't break any of the eggs, through making certain adjustments here. Okay, and so this is all about, and you'll see it as we as this goes further, and once that map, you'll see a map come up here in a few minutes, that really kind of really lays it out. But there's all these themes here that just keep in mind, influence and control. What's missing and what's intentional with trying to remove those as much as possible, because again, that's gonna reveal truth, just like the demand. Pick up the toys because I'm the parent, right? It's the same thing.
They're very specific lead handling skills for people who have the handle end of the lead, and we have the dog in a harness on the other end, or potentially it's a horse in whatever sort of humane gear that we have on them, or even a pot-bellied pig. But anyway, we use
Same thing. This whole permissive ideology is invading horses, but that can be very much a problem because here's the thing: it is about control and influence. You get on top of a horse, it's a powerful animal, and you're not providing leadership the right way. You get thrown off. You get injured or killed.
a long leash. The leash is about 15 feet or 5 meters. And then those specific skills help the dog balance freedom and safety.
So here, and again, this is the kind of setup here. But notice again, I mean, we talk about, the core issue here is about relationship. I mean, the reason dog owners experiencing a relationship problem because leadership's absent, control and influence in terms of how you're interacting, how you're connecting that way, to meet a dog's social needs. And so here, it's no accident that those who connect with dogs at a more emotional level, have more of a relationship problem with dogs. That's it's profound, but that's what it is. But here's the thing: the setup for this, if you see, again, long line, the dog's in control, right? It's like, and you'll hear her say this about staying out of the conversation, staying out of the way, right? It's all about, because again, if you start to, which needs to happen, so the right way here is this dog should be attached to a leash, and a collar. A collar is about connection, okay? It's about being able to control the dog, in a reasonable way, okay? Understand it's all about control, intentional control. This dog should be right next to her, okay? This needs to line up at a physical level, but it's also about relationship that way, about who's in control. And then from that point, and you see in my videos how I'm doing what's called the one-step method, how I'm very intentionally with influence and control, part of, again, a intentional interaction-based approach where the dog is going to come into agreement. But even in terms of, influence being proactive, where, again, understand about a dog's stinking thinking, as I call it, once a dog has gained a level of control in the relationship, everything becomes a supply source. So this is where the whole reactivity issue happens, because a look just isn't a look. It's a expressed state. Dog's looking towards another dog. It's a potential supply source. So, not having healthy thinking because the dog's gained a level of control. The dog wants to take over. Okay, wants to express control that way. And so again, the role of influence in terms of stinking thinking needs to be that you're intercepting and interrupting, the state of mind of the dog as controls is being expressed, as it's manifesting. Okay, but there's none of that happening here at all. Okay, understand this is this totally different path, the wrong path.
So the leash is there so the dog isn't running around off leash or potentially, running toward the trigger and biting or whatever else.
So, and again, notice here a lot of superficial language, right? Talking about the trigger. Well, what does that even mean? Okay, it's like, so understand that when you talk about the type of terms and language that's used from the superficial idea of things, understand it's just appearance based. It's based on just getting a response. It's not about depth. It's not about connecting dots the right way at all. And so the language that comes off of it is very superficial because of that. So why you hear people changing the emotional state of the dog, You hear certain things that don't even make sense because it's driven by emotions, all appearances. There's no depth at all.
But with the leash skills, we handle in a particular way to promote safety as well, so that we're not tangling up. And yet the dog feels more free. So their experience should be that they feel as off leash as possible.
So you hear that? As off leash as possible, because again, freedom's about control, right? So you start to tighten that leash up to a point of intentional control. For a dog that is holding control, that's why they're reactive in the first place. They're gonna start going to a level of challenge, and see all the cards get exposed, right? I mean, but you want to expose the cards. That's the whole thing about for a dog, that the hand that they're holding, right? It's like, in terms of a better relationship. So by here, this is all when you start to really listen to, was all this the leash skills and talk about how you connect and what you're doing. It's all about, the least minimum amount of control of the dog as possible. Because again, like I said, you bring those core ingredients in, right? It's gonna reveal truth.
So the specific leash skills that we teach in BAT are really useful. We won't really get into them, but just know that they're there. An important part of BAT is the setups. This is where the student dog is set up to be able to experience the trigger in a way that doesn't trigger the emotional response that we're trying to change. So
there you go. It's about the dog being in control, right? And so this is the walking on eggshells. This is why you'll see it all indirect, right? Because to go directly towards, the other dog or the individual represents control, right? You're when you start to go in a direct, so directness represents control. This is why everything's got to be this way. It's got to be like back and forth, zigzagging, the dog investing their nose in the ground, because it's not about doing it the right way. It's not about this individual being in a leadership role, because this is why the relationship went sideways to begin with. It's all about trying to find a way to get what you want without actually adhering to the rules of nature. Okay, it's really being in rebellion to nature is what this is, conflict with.
It doesn't make them afraid or frustrated or whatever else. They're just seeing the trigger and then able to sort of be in a more cognitive state where they can process the information and change their mind about the stimulus.
So see, this is about them working, right? Them processing. It's not about you leading and you deciding, right? This whole thing about free will. I mean, that's the other question too. That's a lot of confusion in the dog training world. Well, what about letting the dog decide? And so, but again, go back to the parent example. When a child has become selfish, where's that line too with the free will of the child? Do you turn it into a learning-based exercise, or is it about the parent decides, right? The rules, boundaries, right? Well, it's the parent. It's following the authoritative parenting style, but it's not about free will that way. So this is the whole thing. This is the deception when people get in this thing about agreeableness. See, this is the thing. People will follow those themes: bribery, accommodation, negotiation, without considering that's not just about agreeableness. Because you can get agreeableness, but not a better relationship, because again, your role is absolutely critical. Those core ingredients have to be in the process itself. So right here, she's talking about working it out. See, notice it's always about the dog, right? It's always about the human too, but not in a good way. Okay, this is all upside down.
So seeing children, seeing other dogs, they're not scared. They start to be like, that's actually kind of interesting, and I maybe like them.
Or maybe I can control them, right? That's a better way to think about it.
So we work in enriched environments. We have stuff on the.
So right here, again, pay attention, because all the clues are right here. Okay, enriched environments, right? Trying to distract the dog. Exploration, right? Just trying not to do anything, just letting the dog work it out. Natural movement, right here, not straight lines. There's the biggie, right? Straight. Just think about directness. Directness is what? Control, right? God forbid you be direct about this and start to take and guide the dog, but start to express control through the leash. The dog's going to flip out, right? It's because it really is. This is all about a balancing act, right? This is trying to trying to overcome, resolve, but not adhering to the rules of nature. Okay, this is really what's going on here.
The ground we bring in so that the dogs are sniffing rather than consistently just staring at the trigger. Natural environments are better where we don't actually have to bring in specific odors. The less natural it is, the more we have to then later work on generalization. So if you work in a more natural environment, that's great. A big paved area is a little bit harder, so that's where we bring in our extra environmental enrichment. Exploration is basically the opposite of a stress response. So if the animal is exploring the area, that facilitates their taking in of information so that when they see the trigger, they're in sort of information acquiring mode rather than reacting to the trigger.
So it's same thing. Go by the parent example. This is no different. Like the whole thing here is about, how people respond to, confrontation. But here's the thing. Once a child has become selfish, then it's almost like a parent who's so almost like terrified to confront the real problem, to actually be able to move through it, be able to establish, what's going to happen or not happen, that they are so desperate to avoid all of that that they just will try to do something through those themes, bribery, accommodation, negotiation, to try to find a way forward, but not in terms of through the authoritative parenting style, through parental influence. None of that. This is about, they have this idea of things, but what happens, it doesn't actually fix the problem. The child ultimately knows it. Says, well, and so it doesn't fix anything. But because the parent is kind of trapped in their own idea of things, so they can't move forward on
it. Mode. It basically just looks like they're sniffing and having fun, or they're maybe looking for a place to go to the bathroom. We want natural movement and not straight lines.
Now, we'll get into this too. Think about how long something like this takes, okay, versus being direct and actually taking control, okay, in a good way. Because people always assume, and this is the problem, you get a dog that has a lot of control issues, then taking any sort of control, the dog's going to go into challenge. But there's a way to do it, okay? But here, this takes forever. And that's why people waste their time, because, you're walking around like this. Think about all what you have to do to actually even get close to, say, the other dog or person. And you're not doing it the right way anyway. And you're just wasting all your time. It's incredible. But people understand, people are willing to do this if they think that they don't have to change their role. They don't have to change how they connect. They don't have to bring a dog under control, right? It's understand this is kind of like the buy-in part. And you ever, if you wonder why it is that the people just seem to go along with this, and then even the point where they're locked into this situation where they're managing a problem, they're never fixing it. This is why, because it's people are telling them what they want to hear. I mean, that's why this is so popular. Why these people are able to market this. Because there's a ready-made audience for this type of idea of things.
If you were to have a dog in a space that was safe off leash, you'll see that they do a lot of curves. Sometimes they'll run in a straight line, but generally speaking, there's a lot of curves. And that's what we're looking for with BAT. We want to avoid guiding the dog toward the trigger. It's a very
See? Comes right here and says it. It's not like it's even hiding anything. Avoid guiding. Avoid controlling the dog. Avoid bringing the dog in any sort of control or influence. Avoid it. Well, why would you avoid it? Well, because they know, right? It's like knowing the limitations here, knowing the problems, right? Inherent to this idea of things. I was going to go into level of challenge. Stay out of the way. Okay. I mean, again, and in conversation, what type of conversation is that? Certainly not a type of conversation where you're in control of anything, right? Stay out of the way. Well, it's always about, it's like diminishes the role of, right? It's a trade-off. So really what you're doing is you're trading off in the relationship by, taking this path.
Natural human thing to want to achieve a goal. So we'll find that we're like stepping toward the trigger or positioning ourselves in a way so the dog will move that way. We really want the dog to be the one to choose to go closer to the trigger when they're ready.
See, the dog to choose, right? Choice. Not you choose, because that's control. The dog gets to choose. A dog that's already gained control, you're in a weak position, so of course, right, that's how you maintain this appearance of, agreeableness. This is the playbook.
Helps us keep the dog at a calm state of mind rather than going at our human pace, which is then too accelerated and it gets them in trouble.
It gets them in trouble. No, you're in trouble, okay, because you're dealing with a relationship problem and you need to get out of trouble by understanding your role. Okay, understand that's key.
We also want to stay out of the dog's way and in conversation. What I mean by staying out of the way is that we're also not blocking their approach to the trigger. So we're not preventing it by the way that we're standing. And that we're in conversation, meaning that when the dog turns to look at us and says, "Where do you want to go?" basically, with our body language, we offer them some options. So we might take a
Okay, we offer them some options. I mean, think about it. I mean, this is so permissive, right? But understand, this is why people never get, the relationship fixed with their dog. It's like we're offering them some options, right? Like this is a dance.
step back or lean sideways. So we're in conversation as the dog sort of navigates that environment. The setup that you see here is from the BAT 2.0 setups video.
So here it is here. Okay, here's the roadmap. Look at it. There's nothing to do with control or influence directly. Okay, it's all about trying to, keep it together. Okay, with a dog that's already gained control in the relationship, and keeping those core ingredients out of the mix, influence and control, because God forbid it'll cause the dog to go into a level of challenge, and keeping the owner in a weak position. Okay, understand that that's what this is here. But understand that my encouragement is think about why people end up feeling like a hamster in the wheel. Spinning your wheels, like having to reapply this over and over and over again. Never seem to gain any traction in the relationship with your dog because this takes that path I was talking about in terms of approaching a relationship problem as a learning-based exercise. Okay, and so understand that just like being a parent, your role is absolutely critical. But again, using the parent example, think about everything I said on this video in terms of, if you were to do those things, engage in those themes of bribery, accommodation, negotiation, there again, it seems it will appear to offer hope in certain moments, moments of agreeableness. And that's why certain concepts such as counter conditioning are problematic based on its application with the issue of bribery. Because the missing piece, or understand the missing piece of all this is the current state of the relationship. They never ever talk about why you're going to a training in the first place, that you're dealing with a relationship problem. Just like a selfish child. It'd be like someone coming in like Santa Claus with a bag of goodies over their shoulder, and the only thought process going on in their head is, how can I get this child to respond so I can sell those responses as is to the parent? And not sitting down with the parent, not looking at the parenting style, none of that. Leaving the parent in a passive role, and then just like leaving like the scene of a crime with the parent, engaging in bribery, and then wondering why they never, nothing's changing. You might have some good responses at times, right? But ask those questions. Is that really what the basis of change is in terms of at the social level, in terms of the relationship, your role? And again, this is why dogs are social animals. Dogs are different than a cat or a parrot, okay? They're amazing animals because they connect with us that way at a social level. It's an amazing connection. But you have to not deny the fact that they're also governed by nature, the rules of nature, okay? And those issues with strength and weakness is very real through that connection. And so again, my encouragement is don't fall into this trap. I understand there's lots of trainers out there selling this superficial idea, making money off of it, getting people to buy into it because it's like there's so much confusion in the dog training world. But understand that the right way to go is the path of approaching training for what it is, a intervention, bringing the spotlight on your role properly, and bringing those core ingredients I talk about through a intentional interaction-based method that speaks the right language, okay, to dogs in a way that truly, in terms of reactivity, in terms of socialization, other dogs. I encourage you to watch my videos on my channel. that really will provide a framework the right way. But again, check out my website. I have lots of great information, but definitely this is a concept you want to steer clear of. Thanks for watching.